One and all, g'day. I'm sure at the end of the evening we'll have some time to look at the wonderful pictures out over here as well. So, thank you very much for turning up tonight, and just in case you're not aware, this is the Christchurch Photographic Society, so if you've turned up in slightly the wrong place, we don't mind if you leave, but we also would love to welcome you to stay. My name is Karen and I'm your MC this evening. We've just got a couple of admin things, which is where the emergency exits are, which is out here, other side of the stage, out the back, at the front door where you came from, which is not the back where I'm pointing, but that's all right. And the assembly point is across the road from the church. The bathrooms are in that corner of the building, head that way, you'll find them. They're well signed. If you could be kind enough to please turn the ring-a-dings off, or at least put them to silent, that would be most appreciated. And that's the admin little bits and bobs, so thank you for that. We have a couple of notices this evening. So this evening I believe that Heidi would like to talk about Laurie Thomas for a minute.
Packing, well done, or getting organised. Our weekends, winter school is about to start on Friday. We're all meeting at 6:45 in Twizel, so please keep your fingers crossed and pray for great weather, all right? We've lost our escape route, so we have only one route to get down there. So yeah, it's open and we're ready to roll. So anyone got any questions at home or here? I'm here to answer them for you as best I can. Look forward to seeing you down there. If those of you who can't make it this year or chosen not to, that's okay. We run every year a winter school, and I haven't organised next year's yet. I'm not that far advanced, but I'm sure we'll think of somewhere exciting amongst ourselves this weekend. Thanks, Karen.
Thank you, Heidi. I do believe, I forgot to ask, but Mike, did you want to talk about the following weekend, or you're all good? Okay, we're all good for that. And I would like to invite Alistair to introduce the wonderful pictures.
Thanks, Karen. Right, tonight's display is by Ian, our president, CPS president, and I'm sure this is your latest work, is it, Ian? It's yeah. We've got Harry as well with a display of his prints as well, which is a double banger tonight, which is great. But you were talking, I think, about your latest thing with photos and doing textures and yeah. So if you'd like to talk, and then Harry, if you could talk for 2 minutes, we haven't got all night, but just 2 minutes, just to.
Okay, I'll talk really fast. Basically there's a bit of a mixture here. The real McCoy pictures are sort of from the middle down to the left, and they just come out of a big box that sits in the garage that they all accumulated in, so I grabbed a random selection. You'll notice by those that over the years my pictures have never been entirely literal, right back from forever. So there's been textures and all sorts of stuff loaded on top of things, or lens babies or whatever. But what I've been doing this year is at this end, so it starts at the house on the top with the red plants, and then both the top and the bottom, and it's using encaustic process of putting basically melted beeswax and a Damar resin, a hardening agent over it, and then painting them on, and then warming the resin and then squidging it around with palette brushes and all sorts of stuff. So making my own textures that are actually real McCoy textures as well. So I've been really enjoying doing that. And the other thing that I really like about it is I've always had a personal hatred of looking at photographs behind glass. You know, whenever you frame it and put it behind a glass, you come up and when you look really closely, all you see is yourself. and the reflection of the glass, unless you spend a fortune on fancy glass. So this is a process that allows the image to, it's being protected by the wax, so it not only forms a creative thing, but it actually protects it as well. So some of them have been framed. I'm working on framing systems that'll just allow them to be the way they are. So feel free to come and have a look. You're allowed to touch them. They won't bite. And ask me any questions you want. But enjoy looking at them. I'll hand it over to Harry.
Well, I better own up. All of mine are behind glass. $2 shop frames. And just a variety of what I'm doing at the moment. A little bit of, it's pretty local to where I live. So this tree here is not far away. And this one's on my regular walk with Rosie the dog. And this chap is just ornament that sits in the room at home, and I have coffee most mornings at a place called Chakotti's in Merivale, and this man is obviously very fond of his dog, frequently sits opposite me, and I like a little bit of street photography, so bang. This one is actually a high street or main street. And this one is photograph of a camera, in this case a Fuji X100, which was given to me by my younger son. So I took a photograph of it with another camera that I have that was given to me by my older son. And these feet are in a bit of a shopping arcade in Bangkok. Another little dabble at street photography. This is morning coffee. I hope you can get something out of them. I'm happy to answer anyone's queries. They're all pretty straightforward snaps.
Thank you both very much for sharing your photography with us. It's really appreciated. And I know that new members will also enjoy, and potential new members, because I forgot to welcome them. So, hi, Tony. That's Tony's first night tonight, so welcome. Thank you. Really appreciate it. And this evening, our main event is projected image number 6. However, first up, we have the AV from the Fiordland trip, which I believe James put together for us. So thank you very much, James, and I hope you enjoy.
Into this house we're born, into this world we're thrown, like a dog without a bone and packed around alone, riders on the storm. There's a killer on the road, his brain is squirming like a toad. Take a long holiday him by the hand, make him understand. The world on you depends, our life will never end. Gotta love your man. Yeah. Riders on the storm, riders on the storm. Into this house we're born, into this world we're thrown. Like a dog without a bone, an actor out alone. Riders on the storm. Riders on the storm, riders on the storm, riders on the storm, riders on the storm.
Now that looks like it was a fabulous adventure. Thank you very much for putting that together, James, and thank you very much, Mike, for organising what looks like was a fabulous trip. Now, it's my great pleasure this evening to be able to introduce that it is the projected image number 6. That is our main event for tonight. And we are lucky, I believe, that Heidi is presenting, is reading. Just a slight glitch for the minute. And I believe Diane is going to introduce the judge.
Good evening, everyone. Tonight's competition protected image 6, the statistics, 54 entries, 30 images were accepted into the competition, which is a 56% acceptance rate. There was 15 acceptances, 9 high acceptance, 5 honours and 1 best in show. The judge has given me something to read out. The judge for the competition was John Hodgson, who has a lot of letters after his name. I'll read them out. So it's EFIAP/B, AVEFIAP, FAPS, AVMAPS, ESFAIP, and honorary FAPS, SAPS. I'm not actually sure what all of those are, but it looks very impressive. John has been active in amateur photography in Australia for more than 40 years. Over that time, he has exhibited with considerable success in both national and international level competitions, winning numerous awards for monochrome prints and more recently colour prints and audiovisual sequences. In 1985, he co-founded Printworks, an international print exhibitors group which has established itself as one of Australia's most successful groups. Since 1980, John has judged regularly at club, state, national and international levels, including Adelaide, Sydney, the VIGEX and Maitland Internationals and the Adelaide International AV Festival. In 2007, he accepted an invitation to be one of the judges for the 12th China International, conducted in Lishu, China, and was a jury member for the Royal Photographic Society's AV International in 2014. He's a very accomplished man. He has also judged several South African AV internationals, and he and his wife, Judith, were keynote presenters at a South African National AV Convention in 2019. For more than 20 years, John has been involved in photographic administration, serving several terms on the management committee of the South Australian Photographic Federation, serving as judging coordinator for the Federation from 1999 to 2011, and serving 2-year terms as junior vice president, senior vice president, president and immediate past president of the Australian Photographic Society. He served as chair of the organising committee for the 2004 and 2009 APS National Conventions and the organising committee for 2011, 13, 15, 17 and 19 Adelaide International AV Festivals. Since 2006, he's been the patron of the South Australian Photographic Federation. John has also given presentations at photographic conventions, both in Australia and overseas, and has a particular interest in landscape, architectural, and still life photography, as well as AV productions. His work has appeared in a number of books and magazines, and as in public and private collections in several countries. Wow, amazing achievements. So I'll hand you over to, did you get through, Heidi?
Yeah, we're all
Okay,
Thank
to
you.
read the critique, and we can watch the photos come up.
School 1, Ruffed Lemur. The composition works well, as does the soft lighting, although a somewhat tighter crop would improve it. What lets the image down is the fact that very little of the lemur is sharp. School 1, Simple Dandy. The dandelion itself is not as prominent as the background, which, while it's out of focus, is brightly lit. The dandelion would benefit from backlighting, but also needs to be much sharper, while the background needs to be far less prominent. School 1, Red Glowing Circle. Bright red pattern on a black background has the potential to be a strong image. In this case, however, no part of the pattern is in focus, and the dark sections in the left foreground and the rear also reduce its impact on the viewer. Score 1, Sunset Glow. Late afternoon light has a lot of appeal, but in this case the exposure has washed out most of the detail you sought to capture. Portions of the top right-hand corner of the image are overblown, and the ridges and the foreshore elements are scarcely visible. When shooting into the light, as you have done in this image, it's often necessary to take two identical images, one exposing for the sky and the other the foreground. The two images can then be combined in Photoshop. Score 1, Peace Pigeon. It's a pity that the sharpest part of this image is the rather ugly section of roof on which the pigeon is positioned. The pigeon itself is a little unsharp, and most of its feet and a portion of his tail are obscured by the roof. The colours are accurate, but the composition could be improved. Score 1, Hills in the Sky. In compositional terms, the combination of mist and layered landform is appealing, but the lack of focus on the landform, which would have contrasted nicely with the mist, greatly reduces the impact of the image. Score 1, Iraqi Mount Cook from Twizel. There is a good engagement between the subject and the viewer, but the confinement of lighting to the man's face and right shoulder, together with high contrast, reduce the effectiveness of the image as a portrait. There are overblown highlights on the side of the subject's nose, but insufficient light on the eyes. Score 1, Trail of Dust. The concept here is well thought out, with the trail of dust behind the vehicle being picked out by the early morning or late afternoon sun. Unfortunately, there is an overall lack of sharpness in the image, and the composition could be improved by moving the building further down in from the left-hand edge of the image. Are you getting enough time with the images tonight? Yeah, thank you. Score 1, Textual Study. The placement of the timber structure between the dark foreground and background areas works well, although moving a little off-center would improve the composition. What lets the image down is the lack of sharpness in the timber structures and the absence of any real interest in the structure. Adding an element on top of the structure and ensuring both are sharp would make for a more interesting image. City Herd. The dominant elements in this image are someone else's artwork. A dominant sign and a clutter of plants in the foreground. The reeds at the bottom of the image are a particular distraction. The image is well exposed and sharp, but I don't find the combination of elements particularly interesting. Score 1, Mum's Anguish. The motorcycle and riders are sharp and well exposed, but any connection between mum and the riders is lost in the fact that there are multiple viewers and vehicles in the top half of the image, all of which are out of focus and a distraction from the bike riders. A longer focal length would be required to isolate mum from the rest of the observers. Score 1, yards with a view. The angle of light leaves much of the yards in shadow, but more importantly, the yards occupy roughly half the image without having a great deal of appeal. The exposure and sharpness are satisfactory, although the bold sky lacks interest. Given the title, moving to the right and reducing the size of the yards within the image while taking in more of the landscape within which the yards are located would produce a more interesting and attractive image. Score 1, wild mountain weather. The patterning created by the rain and the out-of-focus landscape have some appeal, creating a strong impression of wild weather, but the eye wanders around the image without finding anywhere to rest. Incorporation of more dominant element, such as a foreground tree, would improve the composition and add impact to this image. Dandelion mono. The portions of the dandelion in the top half of the image stand out well against the black background, but the lower half of the image is somewhat messy, in part because of the highlights on the out of focus background, and in part because the lower dandelions are out of focus and one keeps overlapping by a dandelion on the top right. Keep playing around with this idea. There is real potential to produce a strong image. Score 1, overlooking the historic Red Bridge in Clyde in autumn. The author has shown some imagination in layering the image, but the heavy border on the first layer clashes with the subtlety of the out-of-focus layers. The image itself is a little busy, although the central location of the Red Bridge does tend to draw the eye. Overall, the image might have worked better without the layers, as they merely add to a somewhat busy nature of the composition. Exposure and sharpness are well handled. Score 2, Grace and William. Nicely composed, with the soft light suiting the subject. It's a pity the strands of the girl's hair cut across her face and mouth. Something could have been corrected before you took the shot. Her right eye is a little unsharp, and while the background foliage is suitably blurred, there is a somewhat bright spot in the middle which could have been cloned out. Score 2, balloons. An interesting image with good exposure on the tops of the balloons, but overblown highlights near the bottom. The bright light near the right-hand edge of the image is also a distraction. The composition could be improved by moving closer to one of the balloons and having the others gradually receding, which would necessitate moving further to the right as well as closer in. Score 2, Mount White Road. The angle from which this image was taken gives a bit too much dominance to the foreground section of the road, which is the least interesting part of the image. The eye is drawn down the road, which works well in the composition terms, but the direction of light and boldness of the sky, together with the absence of any foreground items of interest, means that the image does not have a lot of visual impact. Score 2. Fly flagility. And now I've lost it. Sorry. Apologies if that's your picture. While the dog and the ball are sharp and well exposed, they represent a relatively small part of the whole image. A much tighter crop, which removed most of the bottom half, would give a greater prominence to this dog. A sister and brother just hanging out. The soft lighting in this image suits the subjects, and the background is nicely defocused. While the children are sharp, what lets the image down a little is a lack of engagement of the child on the right with either the viewer or the child on the left. Shed in the mist. Mist creates the potential for pleasing images, but making the shed the dominant element in this image and the static positioning of it sideways across the image result in an image lacking strong appeal. Reducing the building to a small part of the image, angling it into the image and taking a wider view of the misty countryside would create the potential for a much more appealing image. Score 2, pied stilt in the shallows. The exposure on the stilt and the water are both excellent, but the bird is a very small element in the whole image and would be more interesting if it was considerably larger. The water was more shallow and we could see the bird's legs, so I get what he's saying, sorry. Didn't quite read as well as I'd hoped, that one. Score 2, a place to rest. Sharp and well focused, but lacking any real interest, which could be created by the structure being occupied. The bold sky and soft background are also of limited interest. Score 3, time to flee. The movement of the stag is well captured and the background is nicely defocused. The brightness of the grass is a little distracting, and a lower viewpoint would have improved the image by placing most of the stag against the dark, out of focus background and reducing the amount of brightly lit grass. Score 3. Alstroemeria. Apologies for pronunciation. The warm tones and textures are appealing, although the image would benefit from lighting the shadow areas a little to produce a more realistic color in the leaves. Score 3, lotus leaves. The softness and uniformity of the water creates the impression that the lotus leaves are like flying saucers. The leaves themselves are sharp and well exposed, and the water droplets add a degree of interest, albeit more vertical elements would have produced a stronger image. Score 3, tea party. The triangular composition works well, as do the vibrant colors and reflections. The image is well exposed and sharp. My only suggested improvements would be to have the girl on the left turn a little so we can see her face, and to darken the bright reflections along the top edge of the image. Score 3, my mother is missing. The side lighting emphasizes the texture of the bird's feathers and provides a catch light in the eye. The out of focus background has been well handled and the bird is sharp and well exposed. A slightly tighter crop would improve the image. Would improve. Roof lines, score 3. A relatively high contrast in the upper half of the image has strong graphic impact, particularly in terms of the corrugated roof. But I feel that the remainder of the house has been darkened a little too much. The prominence of the roof could still be maintained while allowing us to see a little more of the detail in the remainder of the dwelling. Alternatively, as an abstract produced from the top half of the image, only would work quite well. Alternatively, I'll try this again. An abstract produced from the top half of the image only would work quite well. Okay. Score 3, sunflower. While this image is not pin sharp, the patterns shown are very appealing. However, the cropping of the circular element and its proximity to the right-hand edge of the image weakens the composition a little. It's not essential, from a compositional viewpoint, to position the circular portion dead center, but having that portion surrounded by soft yellow petals would, in my view, make a stronger image. Essence of the Mackenzie. The graduation of colour in the sky and the positioning of the moon add interest to what would otherwise be an uninteresting subject. The symmetry of the tower and transmission lines also add appeal to the composition. Score 3, New York milk truck. The lighting in this image has been very well handled. In compositional terms, the image would have been improved by correction of the converging verticals and also by waiting until the truck was angled into the image, rather than being positioned in a way that tends to block the viewer's eye moving along the street behind the truck. Score 3, flight line. The diagonal line created by the planes, combined with the panoramic format, creates a reasonably strong image. With all the planes being sharp and well exposed, the sky is rather bright, and darkening it a little would improve the image. Score 3, Mama's tender loving care. The lighting and the lighting and composition work well, and the subjects are well exposed. There is, in my opinion, too much of the out of focus foliage in the foreground, and it's unfortunate that several out of focus leaves overlay the subjects of the image. However, the birds themselves make an interesting subject. Score 3, white heron fishing. You've captured the moment well, and there are no overblown areas in the bird's feathers. The image is balanced by the reflection of the bird in the water, although the detail is broken up by some degree by the ripples in the water. A small improvement would be to crop out about half the area of sky between the reeds and the top edge of the image. Score 3, temporarily surrounded. The graduation of colour in the sky and the warm tones reflected in the water create a pleasing image, which could be improved by lightening the tones in the beach sand and the cliff face a little to show us a little bit more detail. Score 3, breakfast time. The egret is well exposed, and the captured creature adds interest to the image. The bush to the bird's right, particularly the brighter areas at the bottom, are a bit of a distraction and could be darkened to make the egret more prominent. Another improvement would be to crop most of the area above the egret's head and crop a little off the right-hand side of the image to remove the bright area of water which is on the edge of the image. Score 3, wolf piles. A simple image in which the subtle nature of tones in the sky. The water and the background contrast nicely with the darker tones of the foreground and the piles. Given the linear nature of the composition, cropping half the water and about 1/3 of the sky would still retain the tonal graduation in the sky while producing a panoramic format which would give more emphasis to the piles. Overall, a pleasing image. Score 4, Tomtit. Hold on till I get my balance. Capturing a bird as it attempts to balance itself creates a strong image. The bird is fairly sharp and the background is nicely out of focus. The image benefits from the soft lighting. A small improvement will be to crop the image a little at the top and on the left. Score 4, Battle of the Crosses. An unusual image which is well composed and exposed and tells an intriguing story. The image is sharp from the front to the back and the highlights and shadows have been well controlled. Score 4, Early Morning. Composition and graduated toning in the sky are both strong, and the softness in the water created by a long exposure creates a strong contrast with the pier. The only minor flaw, in my view, is the partially obscured light near the top left-hand corner of the image. Cloning it out would remove a minor distraction, otherwise a very strong image. Score 4, Out of the Blue. The low, warm light produces a pleasing contrast between the range and the cool colours in the sky. There is good modelling on the range and the foreground. The image would have been improved by adjusting the shadow areas to show a little more detail, but overall, this is a pleasant image. Score 4, Beach Training. Panning the image has given a strong impression of movement, while enough of it is sufficiently in focus for the viewer to get a full sense of the subject. A very pleasing action shot, which might be made stronger by cropping half the sky and the beach to produce a more panoramic format. Score 4, Wax Eye Treat. Excellent lighting, and the bird is sharp and well exposed, with a catch light in its eye. I feel the image could be improved a little by cropping 2/3 of the space between the bird's head and the top of the edge of the image, and also by showing full curvature at the bottom of the fruit and the bird is eating, but an appealing image nonetheless. Drip line, score 4. The combination of red background and the colours reflected in the droplets have strong visual impact. The out of focus strip line on the left is a minor distraction, as is the dark shadow running from the top to the centre. Cropping out The out of focus strip line would produce a squarer format and would simplify the image a little while retaining only the sharp elements. Overall, a strong and imaginative image. Score 4, Monarch. The monarch, butterfly and the flower are sharp and well exposed, and their strong colours stand out well against the subdued and nicely defocused background. A small improvement would be to crop a little from the left and quite a bit from the right. A square format would suit the subject well. Overall, an attractive and very competent image. Score 4, column, lamp, contrails. The contrast between the silhouetted columns and the light poles work well, as does the L-shaped composition. The more subtle cloud patterns in the sky provide a pleasing backdrop, and the diagonal vapor trail left by an aircraft adds further dimension to the image, imaginative and well composed. Score 5, L. Hatter's Bay Dawn. The cloud pattern in the sky is superb and the placement of the foreground rocks work well. The slow shutter speed has produced attractive patterns in the water, and the direction of light emphasizes the texture in the foreground rocks. Detail recovery or sharpening has produced slight halo effect around some of the rocks, and the shadow details are largely blacked out, but overall, this is a very appealing image. Score 5, Doubtful Sound. The early light and mist create beautiful textures in this image, and while the boat is tiny, its placement is very strong. A small improvement would be to adjust the shadow areas front left and right to show more detail in the foliage, but overall a very strong image. Score 5, Dancy's Pass Country. The direction of the light, together with the interesting landform in the mist, combine to produce a very strong image. There is good detail in the shadow areas, and the eye is drawn into the image by the well-lit valley. Score 5, Aurora over Lake Ohau. The graduated colour and the sky and the aurora have been well captured, and both are complemented by the colour in the lake. The lighting of the landforms and the way the lake's edges draw into the eye into the image, another powerful image. Score 5, Winter Iris. The subtle nature of lighting gives a delicacy to the iris blooms, but the exposure allows them to stand out from the plain background. The triangular pattern created by the 3 iris blooms, together with the different direction taken by the stems, produces a very pleasing image. The slightly blurred border is a valuable addition. Overall, a delicate and attractive image. Score 6, Got It Covered. A strong action shot with a dynamism. Can I help me out here? Dynamism, created by the diagonal placement of the jet ski rider and the water droplets surrounding him. The proximity of the boy in the foreground completes the composition. The lighting is excellent and the rider and jet ski are sharp and well exposed. The small out-of-focus green object between the jet ski rider's elbow and the top edge of the frame could be cloned out, as it is a minor distraction, but overall a very strong image. That's the best in the show. Well done.
Okay. All right. We'll start with the acceptances and Time to Flee, Peter Curtis. He's not here. John, I've got your name there. Alströmeria, that's me. So, thank you. Thank you. Then we go on to Lotus Leaves, John Hunt. Congratulations. Tea Party, Ron Willems. I think he's, no, it's gone. My Mother is Missing, Bevan, Tullett, sorry. Roof Lines was Nola Sumner, and I know she's in Perth, so. Sunflower from Fritzof Moritzen. Is he here? No. Essence of the Mackenzie, Janine Money. I know you're. Congratulations. New York Milk Truck was Philippa Wright. Flight Line by Pip Corlett. Congratulations. Mama's Tender Loving Care was JKK. Okay. No? Oh, beg your pardon. Sorry. White Heron Fishing, Judy Kirk. Nope. Okay. Temporarily Surrounded, Richard Cooper. No. Breakfast Time, Adrienne Gentleman. No. Wolf Piles, Peter Dunbar. No. I like that. Tom Tit, Hold On Till I Get My Balance, Sue Coombs. Is she here? No. Battle of the Crosses, Jan Bogue. Congratulations. Early Morning by Penelope McCall. Okay. Out of the Blue, Irene Ferguson. Right. Beach Training, Annette Preen. Okay, mother. Wax Eye Treat, Nicola Jackson. Oh, sorry, these are the high acceptances. Oh, sorry. And then we've got Drip Lines, Jane Barnes, it's a high acceptance. Monarch, Alan Moore, he's not here about this. Columns, Lamps and Contrails was Dennis Chang. I don't think Dennis is here either. Gosh, is that the Hatters? Sorry, can't read my glasses. Hatters Bay Dawn, John Hawkins. Doubtful Sound, Nelson Boosted. And we're into the honours, sorry, I'm not paying attention. Dancy's Past Country, John Thornton. That's beautiful. Aurora over Lake Ohau, Cornelia Schultz. It's an honours. Another honours for Dawn Kirk with Winter Iris. Beautiful. Beautiful. And we've got honours and best in show. Got it covered by Les Armand. No. Oh. Thank you, Diana.
Thank you very much. Okay, I just have a few things on my list. Not that many. Can't read it with these glasses on, so we'll just try it from memory. There are a few competitions on that I thought you might like to know about. There is a competition that is an international one called Out from the Mist, representing mental illness, and it's opened in July. They didn't actually have a closing date on the website that I could find, but if you search Out from the Mist, you'll come across that one. The ND Awards for 2022 is due in on the 18th of September. The PSNZ National Photojournalism Competition is due in on the 31st of July. For our club ones, we've got quite a few coming up. Tonight, if you haven't quite managed to get your portrait in for PI7, that is due at 11:59, but please don't leave it till the exceedingly last minute. We also have the open print number 4, which is due on the 27th of July. We have the C grade print number 2 due on the 10th of August. The C grade print projected image number 2 on the 10th of August as well. We have the MDC for at the end of this month due. I believe the subject is The End. Is that correct? And we also have the open projected image number 8, which is due in on the 24th of August. I thought I'd put that in so that you didn't, like me, have just a couple of hours to get it in. And next week, we are lucky enough to have John Thornton talking about the Nikon camera at the 7 o'clock session. And at the 8 o'clock session, we have Anne Worthy talking about photographing your grandchildren. I don't have grandchildren, but I'm sure I can use it to photograph my nieces and nephews. So has anyone else got any notices or ideas that they'd like to come up and talk about? Silence is golden. Okay. So I'd like to take the opportunity to thank Terry for opening. I hope it was Terry. To thank Diana for the 7 o'clock tutorial. To thank Heidi for reading out the critiques from our judge. To thank Diane for talking about our judge and doing the last there. To thank Alistair and Alan for projection. Andrew on sound and streaming, I think. We were streaming, I don't know. I just make it up. Did I thank Heidi for reading? Hopefully I did. If I didn't, then I do thank you. Is there tea and coffee on tonight? And were you kind enough to, who's our, oh, thank you very much for organising that for us. So if you'd like to join us for a tea and coffee, we're going to be in next door. Please take the time to have a look at these wonderful pictures that Ian and Harry have taken the time to put up for us to view. Thank you very much. I look forward to seeing you next time. Good night.